Hi, this is Chris Pells from idevtech.com. In this video we're going to learn about something called CSS control adapters. So what are CSS control adapters? Well, in .NET 2.0 Microsoft introduced a new class and a new concept called control adapters that allow you to intervene and alter the rendering process for ASP.NET server-side controls. As I'm sure you all know, it's pretty easy to use a server-side control like a menu control. You just put some simple syntax on your ASPX page, and then the .NET framework handles the rendering process for all the HTML markup that actually is sent down to the browser when your menu control renders. However, many people have expressed an interest in controlling what HTML markup is rendered when your ASP.NET server control goes through its rendering process. Thus, the concept of control adapters was introduced. So let's get started by looking at a simple menu control adapter that I built here from some of the sample code in what's called the control adapter toolkit, and then we'll dive into the details. So what I've done here is to set up a sample website that has a page on it where we've implemented an ASP.NET menu, and this menu uses the CSS control adapter for menus. So let me fire up the sample web page and we'll take a look at it. And as you can see, it is a pretty straightforward looking menu, a few options here. So how is this different from the traditional ASP.NET menu when it's rendered down here to the sample page? So to answer that question, let me flip back here to Visual Studio, and what I want to do is to open the same page again, but this time open it in Internet Explorer. As you saw, we had that first sample page opened in the Firefox browser, and right away you can see that this menu looks very different than the one we have over in Firefox, and yet it's the same page. So what's going on here? Well, this page in IE is being rendered using the traditional ASP.NET menu control, which looks very different than the one we saw in Firefox. I'll explain in a few minutes why using the same page in two different browsers is being rendered a different way. That's actually one of the neat features that we have with the control adapters in general. But first, let's look at the source code for the menu here in IE. We'll view the source, and we'll scroll down and look at the part that pertains to our menu class. And it's right down in here. As you can see, the menu is being rendered as an HTML table, which is the default way that ASP.NET menu server-side control renders its output. So now let's go back over here and look at the Firefox version. And to do this, we're going to use a little tool called Firebug, which is a neat add-on to Firefox. And what this allows us to do is to look at the HTML here for the menu, and we get down here into the menu class, and we can see right away that this menu in Firefox is rendered very differently because it's using the CSS control adapter, and it's rendering an unordered list with a variety of list items. So what we've done here is that by using the CSS control adapter, we have completely changed the rendering process for the ASP.NET menu control to render an unordered list and list items. And let's go now and look at the code in Visual Studio and see how we make that happen. So let's take a look at how we implemented the CSS control adapter for the ASP.NET menu control in the sample page that we just saw. The first step to doing that is to show you where you can download the CSS control adapter toolkit, which has all the pieces necessary for implementing this on your own websites. And if you go off and search for that, you may end up in one of two places. And one of those places is on ASP.NET/CSS adapters. And as you can see here, it says that you can download the source code. However, in March 07, Microsoft opened the development of this to the community, and now it is maintained on a page in CodePlex, which is codeplex.com/CSS friendly. Here on CodePlex you have access to all the different aspects of the project, including the current releases, and let's go there and look at the releases that are available. And one of the things that has been done here in the CodePlex project, unlike the original release of source code on the ASP.NET site, is that the team has created an assembly called cssfriendly.dll, which allows you to more easily incorporate this functionality into your own website. And of course all of the source code is still available in the full toolkit as it was on the ASP.NET site. So I'm going to show you both the use of the CSS friendly assembly and the entire source code in the sample toolkit. So let's go back over to Visual Studio and take a look at the sample project. Now I have two website projects here. One uses the assembly, which I just mentioned, that you can download from CodePlex, and the other one is a website that installs the full source-based version of the CSS control adapters. So if you want to use the source code based version of the control adapters, what you do is create a new website using a new project template that has been added to Visual Studio. And if we go up here to the solution and click Add a New Website, you'll see that there's an ASP.NET CSS friendly website project type or template here that you can use, and that's what I've done to create this upper website called Friendly Website. Now inside the source code based version you have all the pieces that are necessary to create CSS control adapters for the so-called out-of-the-box adapters, I should say, for a variety of controls. Now there are a couple pieces to these CSS control adapters, and let's take a look at them here. First is the actual source code that implements the adapters. Here you can see there's source code in the toolkit for several of the common controls that you would find in ASP.NET. And then also you will see here that there are essentially corresponding style sheets that map to the different type of CSS control adapters that you can implement, because one of the major differences and purposes of having the CSS control adapter is that, as we saw, you can render the HTML for the control in an entirely different manner, and that's essentially part of the standard, what you would implement for the standard control adapter in the .NET framework. However, what we're doing here is that rather than use some of the style related properties for controls such as font size and color, we're leaving the implementation of all of the look and feel to the control to a cascading style sheet instead. And this allows us to implement our control in a more pure dynamic HTML approach. We also have some JavaScript files here for some of the controls. As you can see here, the menu adapter has a JavaScript file. So in the case of the menu that we saw in our sample web page, there would be three pieces to that. There's the code in the VB class up here for menu adapter that actually overrides and implements the rendering process of the HTML elements that we saw. In this case, it's changed it from a table to an unordered list. We then have the corresponding menu cascading style sheet here,